The question that forms the title of this short book is not intended rhetorically. I begin by presenting what I believe to be a compelling preliminary case for socialism, and I then ask why that case might be thought to be merely preliminary. Why, that is, it might, in the end, be defeated. I try to see how well the preliminary case stacks up on further reflection. To summarize more specifically, in Part 1, I describe a context called the camping trip, in which most people would, I think, strongly favor a socialist form of life over feasible alternatives. Part 2 specifies two principles, one of equality and one of community, that are realized on the camping trip and whose realization explains, so I believe, why the camping trip mode of organization is attractive. In Part 3, I ask whether those principles also make society-wide socialism desirable. But I also ask, in Part 4, whether socialism is feasible, by discussing difficulties that face the project of promoting socialism's principles not in the mere small, within the confined time and space of a camping trip, but throughout society as a whole, in a permanent way. Part 5 is a short coda. Part 1. The camping trip. You and I and a whole bunch of other people go on a camping trip. There is no hierarchy among us. Our common aim is that each of us should have a good time, doing, so far as possible, the things that he or she likes best. Some of those things we do together, others we do separately. We have facilities with which to carry out our enterprise. We have, for example, pots and pans, oil, coffee, fishing rods, canoes, a soccer ball, decks of cards, and so forth. And, as is usual on camping trips, we avail ourselves of those facilities collectively. Even if they are privately owned things, they are under collective control for the duration of the trip, and we have shared understandings about who is going to use them, when, and under what circumstances, and why. Somebody fishes, somebody else prepares the food, and another person cooks it. People who hate cooking but enjoy washing up may do all the washing up, and so on. There are plenty of differences, but our mutual understandings and the spirit of the enterprise ensure that there are no inequalities to which anyone could mount a principled objection. It is commonly true on camping trips, and for that matter in many other non-massive contexts, that people cooperate within a common concern that, so far as is possible, everybody has a roughly similar opportunity to flourish, and also to relax, on condition that she contributes appropriately to her capacity to the flourishing and relaxing of others. In these contexts, most people, even most anti-egalitarians, accept, indeed take for granted, norms of equality and reciprocity. So deeply do most people take those norms for granted that no one on such trips questions them. To question them would contradict the spirit of the trip. You could imagine a camping trip where everybody asserts her rights over the pieces of equipment and the talents that she brings, and where bargaining proceeds with respect to who is going to pay what to whom to be allowed, for example, to use a knife to peel the potatoes, and how much he is going to charge others for those now peeled potatoes that he bought in an unpeeled condition from another camper, and so on. You could base a camping trip on the principles of market exchange and strictly private ownership of the required facilities. Now, most people would hate that. Most people would be more drawn to the first kind of camping trip than to the second, primarily on grounds of fellowship, but also, be it noted, on grounds of efficiency. I have in mind the inordinate transaction costs that would attend a market-style camping trip. Too much time would be spent bargaining and looking over one's shoulder for more lucrative possibilities. And this means that most people are drawn to the socialist ideal, at least in certain restricted settings. To reinforce this point, here are some conjectures about how most people would react in various imaginable camping scenarios. A. Harry loves fishing, and Harry is very good at fishing. Consequently, he catches and provides more fish than others do. Harry says, "It's unfair how we're running things. I should have better fish when we dine. I should have only perch, not the mix of perch and catfish that we've all been having. But his fellow campers say, "Oh, for heaven's sake, Harry, don't be such a schmuck. You sweat and strain no more than the rest of us do. So you're very good at fishing. We don't begrudge you that special endowment, which is quite properly a source of satisfaction to you. But why should we reward your good fortune?" B. Following a 3-hour time-off for personal exploration period, an excited Sylvia returns to the campsite and announces, "I've stumbled upon a huge apple tree full of perfect apples." "Great," others exclaim. "Now we can all have applesauce and apple pie and apple strudel." "Provided, of course," so Sylvia rejoins, "that you reduce my labor burden and or furnish me with more room in the tent and or with more bacon at breakfast." Her claim to a kind of ownership of the tree revolts the others.